Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and I have a story that you may not have heard of because I hadn't heard of it until today, and it's one that I think you need to know. Anyway, it has to do with a whistleblower and the price this particular whistleblower has paid for blowing the whistle on some FBI activities. So, we're going to start out with this tweet because I saw that Mary had mentioned me in some very good company, by the way, for this particular post. Well, I wanted to see what it was all about, and so I went up here and I found this person, Valiant Defender Claire Flynn now. Well, it's always good when somebody says Claire Flynn, you know. So, retired FBI SSA, 20 years law enforcement, and then whistleblower, reinstate Robyn Gritz, and where we go when we go all, enough is enough. Okay, this is someone, if you don't know her, you need to find out more because her story is pretty amazing. She was responding to this post by Revolution about trying to get your story out to patriots. Well, she needs to get her story out to more. I found a couple where she's been interviewed, and I'm going to share the links with you. So all of these links will be down below, just like usual. And by the way, if you go to her feed, you can see a lot of things that she posts about various things that she knows about. And she even wrote a letter that Sarah Carter featured to Judge Sullivan in support of Flynn. And I want to point something out on that in just a minute. But yeah, I've got lots of links on this. This one right here, though, has a clip that I want you to hear. And I'm going to play just a little bit of it, but it's a 3-hour-long video, but it starts with her about an hour and 4 minutes in, and it goes until about 2 hours and 20 minutes. So it is kind of lengthy, and the sound quality is not great because it cuts in and out. I think they were like Skyping or something. So, that's the best that they have on it, but it's a really good interview because she says tons of things. So I'm going to play a little clip here and then I'll come back and I'll tell you some of the other things she says in some of the other parts of it.
I have this whole group of people. How can you sit there and if you really think about the fidelity, bravery, integrity, how can you say you have that when you're trying to overthrow the president of the United States?
Person, you never thought your career was going to end, did you?
Not at 16 and a half years. I mean, I had worked extremely significant cases that were in the news and, I enjoyed my job. Andy McCabe in 2008 rated me excellent, told me I was his best supervisor. Then in 2012, he was letting the guy who was the first one to initiate the discrimination against me, he let him do my rating. So I lost my job, but I lost a lot more. I lost just I guess at the time, I had been hurt so much that I just, it was tough to even try and trust anyone. And that's because, I trusted Andy McCabe. I trusted my supervisors. And just to see what kind of evil stuff they could pull on me was unacceptable. And I lost my house. I lost everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my house, I had a beautiful house I just had built, 3-bedroom down there in Virginia. And so I lost my house. I couldn't get a job for 2.5 years over minimum wage. And so trying to pay my bills was almost impossible. I just had to concentrate and prioritize what I was paying because I wasn't making over minimum wage. So then my credit rating went down and it just snowballed from there. And a lot of health problems. I had a ton of health problems because of the stress that they caused.
And I understand where you're coming from here and what you're saying, because you think, and it's like almost an implied contract. When you get a job with the FBI and you go through training and you complete 16 years of exemplary performance, stellar work, great evaluations, of course, but you never think that you're ever going to have to go look for another job again, do you?
No, and I had all excellent and outstanding, ratings throughout the 16 and a half years, except for my last one after I'd filed the complaint is when they failed me. Yeah. And, and they made stuff up on it. And they do this to all whistleblowers. I have another friend, they threw, counseling paperwork in her saying she had be counseled for this and counseled for that. And she's like, I wasn't even in the office that day. I had vacation leave. They lie. They break laws and policies to cover up what they have done and to also push you out and make your life miserable. And then they have tentacles all over corporate America.
Yes, you get blackballed, right?
Yeah. It's just, I just recently, it was July is when I lost my job, my most recent job. And then I see a couple weeks later, Andy McCabe's character witness list. And there's 2 guys on that were over, corporate investigations at where I was. And so, it's not just a coincidence. That's what they do. They try and make your life miserable. Yeah. And I'm about to move now to Texas to take another job. And I know the individual that's hiring me, so I know that he's not a fan of McCabe or anyone like that. So I know I'm pretty safe, but it's a shame that I have to move for the 4th time in 7 years just because of the retaliation that has come at me. And my story is no different than any other whistleblower. Fred Whitehurst, I've talked to him. And he said it still continues. He said, Robyn, it will continue your rest of your life. They'll try anything they can to mess with you.
Now, I doubt if most of you were surprised at what she was saying, but it's true. This is what she was going through. And we're talking for several years. She's just gotten to the point now where her case is in the courts and everything. And she's had a difficult time. But some of the things that they point out in this hour and 20 minutes long video is that, first of all, she plain out says, that they extorted Flynn by bringing in his son and saying that they were going to indict him, all because they wanted a guilty plea from Flynn. And so we all know that. Again, that's something that's not a surprise to any of us. And then she mentioned that she knows that they were having off-site meetings with McCabe to coordinate their testimony. And this was probably back in 2017 when McCabe was still in charge. So, this is just not surprising too, but yet a piece of information that I thought you would like to know. And then they got to talking about the CrowdStrike server. And I thought it was very interesting that this is the guy that interviewed her is Pete Santilli. And so you may know him, but if you don't, that's who he is. And he was mentioning how a lot of these great big corporations and like the DNC, they all have servers not only on the premises, but also off-site, in case something happens to whatever location they're at. Like if you're in California and there's an earthquake, then a server somewhere else in the world can be safe and you'll still have your backup. Well, he says that there was a replica server, because these servers are replicas, and the DNC had a replica server in Ukraine. Again, not surprising, but that is something that I think, President Trump was referring to when he's talking about CrowdStrike and where the server is. So that could be making the Democrats a little nervous, because can you imagine what's on there? Anyway, also about CrowdStrike, she said there was something a little fishy too, because the CEO of CrowdStrike, who was a former FBI field director of one of the offices, I think it was the same one McCabe was a field director for before he became the deputy director. Anyway, that guy, and I can't remember what his name was, but that guy was sitting with Mueller. He was like at an event with Mueller when he got the phone call about the DNC server. So tell me that's not totally rigged. Yeah. Then she went on and she wondered if maybe this was a long-term thing of infiltrating the FBI with these sleeper agents, these people that were all working toward the same goal. And what she thinks is probably it was the election of Hillary Clinton. But, even further than that, just the whole idea of the direction they wanted the country to go. And so she was hypothesizing that, what if this was a long-term plan? Because McCabe's wife purchased a house that was a mile from where Hillary Clinton lived. And it was put under her maiden name so they wouldn't connect it to McCabe. And a lot of them seem to use their maiden names. I've noticed that. And then that same house was about 2 miles from George Soros. So they were like in such close proximity, and that was several years ago that happened. So you've got to wonder, how long have they been planning this? Well, for a very long time. I kind of wonder if it's not been in the works since Bill Clinton left office, because I think they were none too happy that Ronald Reagan won. I think that was not supposed to happen. And then, pretty much they needed their people in charge. And so I think they've been infiltrating things for a very long time. So I think she was probably right on the mark with that. And then something else that they discussed was, whistleblower suicide. She was very interested in that. She said she wondered if anybody has really done any investigation into whistleblower suicides or, documenting what's been happening to these whistleblowers. So anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. The entire interview with her was good. Again, the sound quality comes and goes, but it was still a really good part in the middle there. Here is another interview. I haven't heard much of this one. I just listened to the first part because it's from 2017, and this one was more current. This was from October 28th of 2019, so very current on that. And she has a GoFundMe account. Now, this kind of tells you where she's at. She evidently is not deep state because she's had this going for a while. And look at this. She's only at 51,000. Isn't that sad? I mean, this woman has gone through a lot. I mean, she's had difficulty keeping jobs because they're blackballing her. And, so much has been going on. And you can go through and you can read all this that she has put down here. She's lost everything, including my house, fighting corruption in the FBI. I was an honest agent that knew the American people were my boss. Not too many of those anymore, are there? Well, she just goes through and she tells her story, and it's really, really sad to read this, and then it's even sadder to know that she's raised so little money. Anyway, so I wanted to show you who is representing her, which I think is a good sign, because evidently it's the Barnes Company. Look at their current cases. Okay, that's the same people that are taking on the Covington kids, that situation where they're suing the big media corporations, and then Robyn Gritz, and this is her name, Robyn Gritz, and then Alex Jones as well, because he was kicked off all those platforms. And whether or not you agree with Alex Jones is immaterial. It's his right to be able to say that should be protected. And so this is kind of who they are. If you go through and you look at these, you understand what they're working for. And so deep state whistleblowing, the current whistleblower, he who shall not be named, that we all know, but nobody can say his name. Anyway, that guy is being helped by a Democrat group of lawyers, Rose Compass. Well, this one is definitely a conservative group, and they're helping the whistleblowers that are going against the deep state. So hopefully they're going to have a lot of business in the near future, but it all costs money. And so here's the article about her. And if you go down here, she has been working with Chuck Grassley, who, if you recall, I did a video on, and they consider him the patron saint of whistleblowers because he's really been working genuinely to help whistleblowers. Now, you have to understand that under Obama, more whistleblowers were persecuted than any other time, and prosecuted as well, I believe. This is something that Grassley really worked on back then, and he's continuing to try to get the stories out. And he's really upset about her story because she believes that the major reason that she was targeted was because she was a female agent. Well, I don't doubt that, but I have maybe a different reason why she may have been targeted and why females might have been targeted. Not that they can't do the same job as the male agents, I know there's still a good old boys club going on in a lot of places, including the 3-letter agencies, but I think it's more than that. You see, a lot of what they're doing is blackmail, and it has to do with people who have been involved in Epstein-like setups where they've been framed. Well, who's easier to blackmail? I'm sorry, guys. Women are not as easy to blackmail in those situations as men are. It's just kind of how our bodies are built and everything, and the way God constructed men and women. And I really think that they're harder to control because of that. Now, I'm not saying that they can't control women, because there's an awful lot of ways to control women, that's for sure. But if the deep state's looking to blackmail people using all of those kinds of tactics, then I think they're going to have a little easier time probably with most men than they are with the women. That's kind of just my theory on it, because it seems to me that it would be harder to control her, and she was an honest person, which again makes her a big target anyway. And then to be a woman on top of that could very well be part of the reason that, she was not accepted as much. Also, when it comes to, like I said, the good old boys club, I've taught in schools like that. There was a school where the guys who were coaches and things could get away with absolutely anything. There was one guy who was like a typing teacher, and he would be on totally the other side of the school for half of the class period. And he saw no reason to go back and actually be in his classroom when he had a class. But that was okay because he was a coach. So, again, not all coaches, believe me. I've got a brother who's a coach, and he is really on the case, and he does a great job. But, so I do understand the boys club issue, okay? It does exist. I've had some bad experiences with it, but not all men are like that, and so I understand that. Anyway, so Grassley asked the FBI director about its treatment of female agents at a hearing last year. Grassley said he heard from one woman called emotionally unstable and difficult, all because, quote, she pointed out that her men's size 40 hazardous materials suit didn't fit her. I mean, yeah, and that sometimes happens. I hate to say it, but yes, it sometimes happens. The senator added, quote, another whistleblower claims she was denied a job for which she was ranked first out of 6 candidates because her male supervisors claimed she was, quote, unquote, emotionally fragile following a divorce. Yeah, okay, they'd never say that about a guy. Anyway, so, he's been having a lot of problems getting the FBI to talk about this particular case. He's been trying to work with her and help get to the truth, but she's just not been having a good time about it. It's been very difficult on her, and she got a notice that the FBI intended to begin a process to fire her over the time card issues that they faked. I mean, they faked the whole time card problems and the inappropriate email she sent. Okay, she sent an inappropriate email, which I don't think she did, but that's what they claim, to her boyfriend. Hello? Peter Strzok, Lisa Page. And yet they didn't want to fire them. And Peter Strzok turns around and wants to have a lawsuit about wrongful termination? Hello? Does that make anybody else's brain want to explode? I mean, it's just like, wow. Okay, so she goes on, and she was a kind of friend of Mike Flynn. And she mentions in that interview that she kind of looked at him as a mentor. And so when Flynn saw what was happening to her, he stood up for her. And that was yet another reason why, the FBI was not thrilled with Flynn, because he was trying to defend her. And so she wrote a letter to Flynn, and by the way, this says, an inspector general is looking at Gritz's allegations, and her case is slowly moving through a backlog in the equal opportunity system. So that is some hope for her. I don't know how it's going to come out. But anyway, here's another article that I'll put below. This is from 2015. female whistleblowers speak out against discrimination at the FBI. So this has been going on for a long time here. And then here is the link. I'll put this down below, the Sarah Carter article, where it has the entire letter that she wrote. And she just basically goes through and says that, you know, Flynn is a very talented man who should have been in that position. And there were a couple things that I wanted to point out. First of all, Mike Flynn was put in as the National Security Advisor, and that is the only cabinet position that doesn't require any confirmation vote. And I think maybe that's why they had to concoct all this, because they had to stop Flynn, because Flynn knows where the bodies are buried. But something else that I found interesting here is that she said, I am submitting my letter directly since Mike Flynn's attorney has refused to submit it, as well as letters submitted by other individuals. Now, this is before he got Sidney Powell, okay? And so his former attorneys wouldn't submit these letters by people who are vouching for his character. And that should definitely have been included, because this guy, you know, he's a great guy, and they were targeting him. And so she is really upset about that. And anyway, if you go through, you can see several of her posts, the thread reader. She's got many of them in the threads. And this is one that she had out there. This was from last year. And, you know, she goes through and she just lays it all out, that it was all politicized, and that there are some great people who are sitting there looking at the situation and are horrified, but they know that if they go the whistleblower route, their lives are going to be destroyed. I mean, it's a tough choice, folks. If you've got a family, you've got kids, that's a very difficult choice to make when your entire career has been working for the FBI. To all of a sudden have that career ripped out from under you, it's not a fun thing. And it's not something anybody can take lightly. So, you know, keep them in your prayers, because we do need people like that to step up and to make a decision that they need to come forward. So that's what I've got for you on this one. I wanted to point this out again, because if you're looking for some place to donate at this time of year, I think this lady deserves it. If you go through and read the articles and you watch these different interviews, I think you'll understand why. Her life has been turned upside down, and contrary to how Adam Schiff wants to treat a particular whistleblower, she's not had any respect whatsoever, and she's not alone. And that should tell us something. So I really hope that as all of this unravels, that people like this turn out to be the heroes that they always have been, and will be acknowledged as such. You know, she's tried to be on the media before, but they won't listen to her. They won't interview her. And how do you get your message out? Well, people like me. So I wanted to do this video in honor of her and the sacrifices she's made for our country, and to get the word out that these things need to be investigated. So that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.